Hey guys, thanks again for listening to another episode of the Shift Change podcast. I need to ask if you would leave a rating. I think that it helps people who are new to the podcast find it quicker. It doesn't do me any good, but it does help other people that are looking for the Shift Change podcast on Spotify or Apple. It just comes up quicker the more ratings that you give it. I don't whether you give it a 2 or a 5, it doesn't make a difference. It just helps other people. If you need to get a hold of me, contact me via my email, the show email, which is talkshiftchange@gmail.com. Or you can message me on Instagram at talk.shiftchange. Excuse me, at talk.shiftchange on Instagram. As always, thanks for listening. I could not have imagined um, how well this podcast has been received. So, as always, I appreciate it. Work hard, be kind.
What's up, everybody? It's August 10th already. Sitting in the garage gym, getting ready to put out some content. And I've been procrastinating so much this morning that the chances of me not getting interrupted are pretty slim. But that's okay. That's what Sunday mornings are for. If you're interested, we're in Iowa and it's raining again. I think this is day 50 straight of rain, which is pretty good. We need it. Pretty dry out there. Today's episode is going to be a recap of the last 8 weeks. As most of you know, or as maybe some of you don't, is I had my hip replaced on June 11th. I'm 49 years old and went through a complete right hip replacement. And as that relates to EMS and the physical demands that we can put on ourselves in our job and how we deal with injury and that kind of thing, I just kind of wanted to recap my experience with the hip replacement. And for 90% of it's a fairly good experience. Like I don't regret the surgery at all. It was needed, and was going to kind of just run down how I got there, what called me to seek medical advice, and then go on with the surgery. Certainly somewhat uncommon to be under 50 and get a hip replacement. I'll be 50 next month. We'll do a show on that, on turning 50 in EMS, and I don't know that that's necessarily special, but there's certain considerations that I've seen over my career where I look at older providers and what they bring to the table as far as experience and wisdom, and then maybe what some of them lack as far as, mobility and that kind of thing. But let's talk about my complete hip replacement, if you're interested in listening. Over a year ago, and I couldn't even pinpoint when, I started having some right hip tightness, like up in the groin. I noticed that sometimes when I would go for a jog, I would start normally, like no pain, no nothing, just fairly loose. And as that run progressed, the tightness in my groin would get progressively tighter to the point where I would basically hobble. And keep in mind, I'm not a big runner. I run when they're prescribed in workouts. I don't really run more than a 5K at the most, and that's just because it's a benchmark time, right? I do the miles in Murph, which is about as far as I go. So it's not like I set out every day to go for 6-8 milers in the morning because I get some sort of runner's high and I'm, built for running. I'm a pretty bad, like I don't have good technique. I'm a heel striker. My quads get real tight. I don't have a lot of posterior chain involvement. I never have. I feel like I've gotten, for people that understand the talk, muted glutes for the most part. So I'm not a great runner. I do, and I don't mind it. I just wouldn't choose to do it as a primary form of exercise or conditioning. I would do hill sprints. I think those are a good time, but to go out for a long run over a long period of time to me is just not something that I do, and I'm not particularly built for it, and that's okay. But anyway, that was the first clue that maybe something wasn't right in the hip. And then over time, over 2024, progressively, the pain got more annoying with most everyday activity. So I would wake up maybe with a little hip tightness. I would have some pain maybe when I did squats or something like that, and it could be hit or miss. Maybe I could work it out, maybe I couldn't work it out. And over the summer, to the point where I'm like, I think in 2025 I'm going to have to figure something out and do something with this hip. I'm pretty sure I tore my hip labrum. Is probably what sparked this thing. I have no evidence of that. This is just my assumption based on my activity and my symptoms. And then last year, so August, when we went down and watched Malcolm do his sprint try, the big joke was my hip labrum at the time was very noticeable in conversation, in my gait, like people I was going to do. And so we committed that day to do this year's triathlon in August. So a year later. There were some jokes had about me getting old and in my hip, not being what it used to be and blah, blah, blah. And so it was very apparent a year ago, August, that this thing was escalating. Well, anyway, I got home from that triathlon and swimming didn't bother it, and I was able to bike. That didn't bother it. And then, so I went for a run and I was like, I could probably hobble through a sprint try 5K, which I think is the distance of a sprint try. I could probably hobble through that. So, as the months wore on, I was kind of in the back of my head going, maybe the fall or February of 2026. February is a down month for us in this house. We don't really do much. It's cold. The kids don't have any activities. If I'm going to recover from something, February was a good month to do it. So I kind of set my sights on February 2026 to figure out this hip. And in the meantime, I was going to train for the triathlon. As Malcolm's health declined and things progressed, we turned the first of the year, so January 2026 or January 2025, and I was like, man, this hip thing is just like it's affecting my sleep. I have to prop my hip up with pillows. I can't lay on certain sides. I'm not getting a full night's rest. Like the pain is much more consistent. And I thought, well, we'll just have to bump this up. So I'll do the triathlon in August 2025, and then I'll seek medical advice in the fall and concede, certain things that I like to do in my life to bump it up. Okay. Well, March rolls around, and it's just getting to the point where it's really taken on another level. The pain in my hip, in my right hip, to where I'm like, I don't think I can wait until. So this thing, I went from February 2026 to fall of 2025 to now. I think I need to do something, which typically is not uncommon with somebody like myself. So I reached out to a friend of mine who works at an orthopedic clinic, and I said, who would you suggest to talk to? And gave me a name, set me up with an appointment, walked right in, did the typical, hey, why are you here? And to the point where I think one of the telltale symptoms of an arthritic hip or a severely arthritic hip is the fact that I had really hard time putting on my sock. Like I couldn't get my foot and ankle up over my knee in a good position to get my sock on and get my shoe on. That was kind of a pain in the ass. And so we did the normal, what's your daily pain? You know, it's about a 5. Are you having trouble putting a sock on? She goes, and I said, absolutely. Like, this is terrible. Like, I can't for the life of me figure out why. And she goes, okay. So they send me down to x-ray, take a picture of the hip. Sit in the office. My surgeon comes in. Well, he wasn't my surgeon at the time, but the physician comes in and goes, hey, listen, man, you have pretty advanced arthritis in that hip. And I said, okay. He goes, we just need to replace it. That's the gold standard. And this is exactly what I wanted, right? I did not want a labrum repair because I've heard terrible things about them. Not that some of them don't go good, but it's a long, arduous process to recover from that. There's a chance it won't take. You can get what they call tethering, which I'm not an expert on, but I think is not necessarily good. I think that's scar. I don't really know what that is, but I think it's like there's a chance that it's not, that like the surgery didn't take, and then you're kind of stuck with, you know, however much that surgery costs, and then you're not really fixed. So I knew I didn't want a labrum repair, which is kind of why I let it go the way it did. I was just going to make sure we're just going to replace it. Like that seems reasonable to me. And I said, okay, man, when do you want to do it? He goes, when do you want to do it? I'd do it next week. And I said, whoa, we're moving a little fast. I've got some things I need to accomplish first, right? I have a triathlon in August that I want to do. And he goes, well, listen, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but that's kind of a bad idea. And, you know, most medical advice is, like, I'm not a big fan of people telling me what I can't do. That's no secret. It just annoys me to no end. Instead of looking and saying, okay, how can we get that accomplished? It's, nah, you probably just shouldn't do that. Okay. So probably not a good idea. And I didn't necessarily disagree with it. It just annoyed me. I was like, you're not wrong. So is there a way we can do it after the triathlon? And then after a conversation with him, I was like, there's some things I have to concede in my everyday life, right? Which is picking stuff up off the ground, is I can't do it anymore. I can't put myself in a good position to pick things up off the floor. And that to me is an issue. And it's a huge issue in EMS. Not that I go to people's houses anymore to pick people up off the floor, but if I were to, I wouldn't be able to do it. Not in a good, safe position. And so I'm really considering getting back into ground EMS. And if I were to do that, I could not do it in the condition I was in. I would be a liability. We'd have to call in extra resources. I would have to put the majority of the brunt work on my partner, and who knows what kind of, right, like capability capabilities that person would be able to have. And then, so it's not, the end result is just not good for people. It's not good for the people that call us for help. And so if I were to ever, so the main focus was, I had to switch from, can I do the triathlon to honor my late friend, or can I get back to some normal human function? And to me, the get back to the normal human function as quick as possibly trumped it. And I really felt like that was a big kid decision. Like, I'm really not about big kid decisions. I'm really about emotional, visceral decisions with goals. But to me, it was more important to lift heavy stuff off the ground on a daily basis and get back some of that daily mobility. So we agreed that, a temporary shot in the hip was not reasonable, that we were just going to replace this thing. It's okay. So pick a date. Well, in our lives, in May and June and July, there's no good day, not one. So you just have the lesser of the two evils. So I just picked a day. Turned out to be a home softball game. It's not a big deal. Well, the process goes like this. So I think I had this was in March, end of March. So I had all of May and the 1st of June to get ready for my hip surgery. So in the meantime, there's, your pre-physical checkup with your PCP, which is nothing more than labs, and make sure you're not going to bleed out and you don't pop a raging infection before surgery, and then there was a pre-surgical physical therapy visit that was mandatory. And this is, they teach you how to use your walker, they teach you how to use your cane, and they kind of go over your expectations. And that 1 hour consultation was really interesting to me because it opened my eyes to the fact that I am really not unique in anything. I am not special in anything, but my perception of me is that I'm going to be better at hip replacement surgery than anybody else has ever been. And the physical therapist that I was having my conversation with basically reinforced that, because I would say, he'd be like, what's your expectation to get back? And I'd said 4 to 6 weeks. And he goes, oh, because you're built different, right? Like, let me guess, you're special. Like and I had to laugh, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly correct, man. But this sounds like something you've heard before, which we all think the general rules and large samples of the same thing don't apply to us. And I am certainly no different. And I, to this day, felt like I was going to be, because the whole process, they kept telling me how, well, we don't normally do replacements on people your age and, whatever. So that told me I was special. And so if you're going to tell me on the front end that I'm special, why are you going to tell me on the back end that I'm normal? Like, why would I have the same rehab and the same expectations as a 70-year-old man getting a hip replacement, and not a 49-year-old man who's very active and going in with a pretty good baseline? And so but the whole hour was, we had a lot of fun. It was great. Like, I get it. We kind of went on with therapy. And so my whole intention the entire time was to not seek physical therapy post-surgery. And that was what worked for me. It may not work for you. And so this isn't medical advice. I'm not telling you how to rehab yourself from hip replacement surgery. I'm telling you that it was not for me. I did not want to go somewhere 3 days a week. I don't really know what my insurance was going to do with that, so I don't really need the $150. It would have been, if it would have stayed true, I very easily could have paid up to $400 a week cash to go to physical therapy, and it's something I wasn't interested in. I know for a fact during the debacle that COVID was, that they canceled a lot of physical therapies for hip replacements. So that tells me right there that maybe it wasn't needed. I know of other physicians that prescribe just walking as your physical therapy, which I thought was great. So I just wasn't going to be for me. And I was very upfront with that person that I was not going to seek physical therapy after. So he gave me, here's what you need to do afterwards. And I'll be honest, I used ChatGPT to give me some protocols and to outline milestones on where I should be and a certain time. And it just worked for me. I hit every milestone and blew it out of the water. I was 2 weeks ahead of everything they told me I should be at. And that's not a testament to anything other than I appreciate the ability to figure things out on my own. And I did it, and I adhered to it, and I was able to accelerate things based on my time and my schedule and my resources. I have a lot of those things at home that I would have done in physical therapy. So I just didn't need to go anywhere and do it. And so I'm not bashing physical therapy. It has its place. I'm 100%. There's people there who are really smart. Zero issue with it. It just wasn't for me. So we had a really good conversation and everything went fine. I get out of that, and then it's just a waiting game to have surgery. Surgery day comes, you got to be there. They give you an estimate on what you're going to have to pay. That's a sticker shock, right? So be prepared for that. They wanted you to show up with about $4,000 that morning, which I don't know about you, but that's not something I can do. And we didn't. Matter of fact, they call you and say, "Hey, how much can you put? You need to at least put down half, and if you can't put down half, we're just probably not going to be able to do the surgery." And so at one point, I canceled the surgery. I was like, "Well, listen, I'm not like there's a million hip replacements in the world. And I've been places where I've seen these, like somehow it gets done, right? Like people figure out a way or whatever. But so I kind of got pissed at one point. I canceled the surgery. And I called my wife and I said, listen, they want too much money up front. We have too many kids. There's too much shit going on. I'm not interested. I'll just hobble around for the next until we can figure it out. And she goes, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So she goes, call him back, tell him that you're not going to, we'll figure it out. And so she was talked me off the ledge, which any good spouse would do. Very supportive. I was perfectly equipped to just ride this thing out for the sake of saving my family some money. But so I called the gal back and we made some jokes and she goes, listen, I didn't take you off the schedule anyway. So I was going to give you a couple of days to figure out your life. And it turns out you did. So just show up. Here's how much you have to pay us. And then we'll do the surgery. So showed up. Everybody's really nice at the surgery center, which keep in mind that this is a surgery center off site of any sort of medical facility. So now guess what your insurance is going to do? Your insurance is going to be like, well, this sounds like it's an elective surgery, meaning I've chosen to do it. I don't really need to do it. And I don't know what the definition is, but it sounds to me when somebody says elective, it means obviously I've chosen to do something that I probably didn't have to, that I could also choose not to do. So in order to be an elective surgery, guess what goes up? The cost. So it's no different than a cosmetic surgery, basically, in my opinion. And so now it drives up the cost, right? And so your insurance, or at least my insurance, paid less of a percentage. We'll break down the bill here in a little bit. That's another thing too, and it's going to depend on your insurance and how good it is. And I'm not saying that my insurance did bad. I'm just saying it's just interesting how. And I don't have the intelligence to have a whole conversation about medical billing and coding and how they come up with all these bullshit prices and how they pass it on to the consumer. And I have zero knowledge of how any of that works. And maybe if anybody out there has anybody in the business that wants to shed light on how medical facilities bill for services and then how that gets, I know it's easy to assume that it's a corrupt bullshit scam, and I'm not necessarily against that idea, but I just don't know enough about it to talk smart. So anyway, I show up. Everybody's really nice. They get me back in the room. I have a young, very nice nurse, and my wife is in the room, and we're just getting ready, and she's got to put the IV in, and unfortunately, the gal missed the first time, and then on the second time, she made the mistake of asking me what I did for a living, and then. So we joked, and I wasn't there to make her feel bad about missing the AV. I was like, listen, we all do it. Like, it happens to all of us. Don't sweat it. I'm not mad about it. And then came to the point where she had to shave my leg. And so she gets this electric clipper thing out, and she's like, listen, man, this is going to be weird for me too, but I have to shave your leg, including your butt. And I was like, well, I think we need to get to know each other a little better first then. Like, I clearly can't, we need to ask some questions. So I asked her where she grew up, who her family was. She asked me my favorite color, and we felt like we knew each other good enough that she could go ahead and shave my leg and my right butt cheek. Anesthesia comes in, does her thing, was like, hey, so the plan was not to intubate me. I was going to get a spinal and then what I assumed was a Versed nap. However, they have to play the game if this goes south and we have to put a tube down your throat. Can we do it? So they did that. Lady was real nice, real short visit. They wheel me back. I get on the table and I sit on the table like I'm sitting in a chair. Like I'm not laying on the table. I'm sitting with my feet dangling off the table and I'm leaning forward. And then a nurse comes up in front of me, introduces herself, and she's standing about 2 foot in front of me. And I said, hey, are you the lady that's going to catch me if I fall off the table? And she goes, yeah. And I said, okay. Because they're going to put in a spinal, so I can't be laying down. So the next thing I know, I'm watching the lady push the meds through my IV. I see I can see it tracking through the line, and then it gets to my arm, and then I don't remember shit after that. I remember waking up. So the procedure took about 45 minutes or so. If you've ever watched a hip replacement on YouTube, it's barbaric. Um, they basically saw off the head of your femur in your ball joint, and they basically Dremel tool out your hip socket, and they put in a ceramic cup into that hip socket. Sometimes it needs to be pinned in with screws, sometimes it doesn't. And then they basically take this ball on the end of a spike and then hammer that thing down in the middle of your femur into the bone cavity. Wedge that thing in there real tight and then connect the two and then sew you back up. The approach that he took was the lateral approach, which means they had to cut through my right butt cheek muscle. That we're going to talk about was, I think, where most of this recovery was very difficult. There's an anterior approach they call, which they go through the front of your hip, or in front of your, like just underneath your waistline in the front. I don't know anything about it, but from the people that I've talked to said that's the way to, that seemed to be a better recovery for them. I did not get that option, so which tells me my surgeon was a lateral approach guy, which is fine. Like, it is what it is. I would have liked, not to say on the next one that I'll try that, but so anyway, post surgery, I wake up. They're like, "Hey, welcome back." I felt really good that day. You get right up and walk. There was minimal swelling. The sutures look good. We walk down the hall. I have to step up on a step, basically, and step off the step, get back to my room, put my clothes on, and I'm out. Home by noon. Surgery was scheduled for 7:30, 8 o'clock. I'm home by noon. Walked out to the car. Like, had a walker and a cane with me. Walked out to the car, which that in fact won me $20 from my kid. I walked out of the surgery center. Now, here's the lie they don't tell you, is that I felt really good all day. And so I was probably still high, for one. I was still have the effects of the spinal. We had a home softball game that night. I went to the game. I can't remember if I walked up or if I rode up. I don't remember because that night was a blur. But I was up and down the bleachers. I did the scoreboard. I was like, man, I feel great. I was in a good mood. Like, everything was fine. And I even drugged the field after the game on the gator, bouncing up and down, like, felt really good. That day was a total lie. I was showing off my incision, like this was the best thing that's ever happened. Well, and then day two, I woke up and I was like, oh, man, this is now we're getting real. It's a little stiff, a little tight. Didn't think much of it. Still not using my walker. Gal from the surgery center calls and goes, "Hey, man, how you doing?" I said, "Man, I'm doing great. I don't know what everybody's problem is. I'm doing wonderful." She's like, "You using your walker?" I said, "Nope, don't need to." Day three comes and things are getting a little worse. I'm chewing on the narcotics just to make sure that I'm, functional for my family and that I can, because I've said, my family's very supportive, don't get me wrong, but in this house, time doesn't stop just because old dad's hip hurts, right? Like, we got shit to do and we got somewhere to go. The girls had a road trip weekend where they were going to tournament over in eastern Iowa, which left me home with an 8-year-old who was phenomenal through this whole thing. Very supportive of her dad and helped her dad out a lot, but there's still shit you got to do as an adult, as a parent of 4 kids, and as a dude, right? The yard's still going to need mowed, and you still got to get up and around. So I was taking their narcotics mostly to help me sleep, and just to function throughout the day. I took a lot of naps. I shouldn't say that. I dozed off a lot during the days. Watched a lot of golf. Just kicked it. Iced it every day. Like, things were good. And then day 4 happened, and I was like, man, this is miserable. Like, day 4 hit me, and I was this was a terrible idea. I was begging somebody to take my leg. Just take it. But I started using the walker, and I was like, man, where's this thing been my whole life? And then so the lady called from the surgery center and goes, "Hey, man, using your walker yet?" And I said, "Yeah, I sure am, and it's wonderful." Just took all the pressure off. I could get around the house better. Like, it's dipshit stuff, right? Well, I could fast forward from day 4 to week 4, and it's basically every day was the same day. A lot of pain. I wasn't sleeping through the night at all. It felt like there was a softball underneath my skin. Like, it was swollen. It was tender. It was tight. It really limited my mobility. I questioned whether or not this was a good idea or not. So really, there's not much I can tell you between day 4 and week 4. I couldn't control my descent going down. I had no muscle use of my right butt cheek at all. I had to have help and adjuncts to put socks and shoes on. What else? I really couldn't sit much at all. But I was walking every day. I probably pushed it. I was on my recovery bike, my assault bike, on probably day 5. Just at a slow revolution, slow RPMs, just trying to keep things loose. I was, I'd go walk up to the hill and back, and just, I didn't baby it, but at the same time, it was very uncomfortable. Like I didn't appreciate that. And then so psychologically, we're into that. Here's what I can do. But the problem is that my expectations in reality are always different, and I understand that. Like nothing taught me that more than this recovery of my hip surgery. And so we basically gutted out 2 weeks of terrible pain and misery, but at the same time, trying not to let that defeat me mentally and trying not to let that defeat me physically. Like things did not go undone around my house. Like I was going to get the work done, whether that was, we need to figure out how to mow the yard. We need to figure out how to do things. It's not, and God bless the other people in my house, but they got shit going on too, right? Like nobody has time to sit around and baby daddy. That sounded weird. Baby me and, get my things for me when they've all got other stuff to do. So, and I fully accepted that. I did not want any sort of, it was on me to figure it out. And we did. Week 4 rolled around. I've been hobbling pretty good. I feel like my gait, I really have to focus on my gait and get that going. Still blocked mobility wise, but week 4 hit and I woke up one morning for the first time, slept through the night. And I was like, now that's something, that's progress, because I had been alternating between the couch and the chair, and I would get, blocks of sleep here and blocks of sleep there. But for the most part, it was a miserable 2 weeks. And then, so week 4 I woke up and I was like, man, I made it in my bed all day, all night. And I don't feel bad. And so we progressively got better after that. Like the everyday pain got less and less and less. To where we're at now, we're 8 weeks out. I have 0 everyday pain. The strength is slowly returning. A lot of step ups, a lot of walking, I did some weighted vest walking just to strengthen everything around it. Kept changing my physical therapy stuff that I do, a lot of hip flexor strength and a lot of glute bridges, that kind of stuff. The biggest downside I had was I couldn't get in the pool for 6 weeks. And so it was real hot. I just had to watch my family frolic basically in the pool that I, put together and built. And then I was basically reduced to just cleaning it for them and make sure I was maintaining it so they could have a good time. But I was able to sit on the deck and join them and read books and do whatever, drink coffee. So that's fine. But at week 6, I had a 2-week post-op. That was just an incision check. And so on that day, the gal, I think I was, I didn't see my surgeon again. It was a PA or an NP. And she's like, just as a reminder, here's the things you won't be able to do. Number 1, you won't run again. And so I immediately got pissed because here we are telling me what I can't do. Like, why are you telling me what I can't do? Why can't we just focus on the things that I can do? And I was like, I don't really buy into this, right? Like, you're telling me if I get chased by a bear, I can't run away. Like I have to turn around and say, excuse me, please stop trying to eat me. I've had a hip replacement and I can't run away. That's probably not true. And then so my wife will tell you on the way home from this, I was just pissed. And I'm like, you're telling me like nobody in the history of the world has ever ran after a hip replacement. I just don't buy it. And so I Googled, well, I didn't really Google, I AI'd. Has anybody ever ran after a hip replacement? Sure enough, I get this big long list of all these people that have run marathons after double hip replacements and people who pole vault and people who do this and people who do that, all guess what? With hip replacements. And so I was like, it really pisses me off sometimes that instead of working individually with people, that healthcare sometimes takes the global approach, which I'm sure by their time constraints and whatever they have to, they just give you the blanket. Just don't do it. It's not a good idea to do it. Don't do it. Instead of, yeah, you can do it, but here's how you got to be careful about it. That's what, if I had to sum this whole episode up in what bothers me about healthcare is the fact that it's a blanket general protocol prescription. Don't run again. Nah, it's not happening. Not because I enjoy it, but because I promised a fallen friend that I would continue his legacy when it came with triathlons. Point blank. It's all it is. So to tell me that I can't now after that, no, I'm sorry, I'm the wrong guy. So I'm gonna. And so I got back in the pool at week 6. I got cleared to be in the pool. So started swimming, started doing a pool protocol, a PT protocol, working on that, and everything went. The pool is actually a great way to rehab from, I think, anything, if you have that resource available. And then on the bike, higher intensity on the bike. Things are going good. No pain meds. Slowly starting to get that sock hooked around that big toe. And really just kind of getting right back into it. Like I was working out on day 5, all, obviously from the waist up, but fairly moderate intensity stuff. And then by week 4, incorporating those step ups and those weight vest things. And then I think on week 7, I was doing weighted lunges with a weight vest. Way too many. The soreness after that was awful. But it is what it is. I haven't recovered from it. It's been a week since I've done that, and I'm still real sore from that. But like I said, I tend to bite off more than I can chew. Jumping rope. I was jumping rope on week 7. Double unders are back. Kipping pull-ups are back. Back extensions are back. For the most part, no discomfort. I will say on the 8-week mark, I did test the jogging waters, and it was a terrible fail. I just jogged basically 200 meters, and the gait was off, and then it really kind of became sore after that. So I'm going to prescribe to the no running for 4 to 6 months issue, and I don't really have to get ready. I mean, I can start running after the first of the year. I'm not, the amount of work I would have to do to actually improve my 5K time or my Olympic running distance triathlon time is going to be more than I'm going to be willing to put in anyway. So it's just a matter of being in a condition to survive those runs, or at least to put up a reasonably good number in those runs. So no reason for me to run or jog until after the first of the year, and that I will subscribe to. So other than that, back to work this week. It's been an 8-week layoff. I think that if you're facing injury in EMS, I think it's important to kind of stay on your game in your downtime. I didn't do a whole lot, but this last week, been doing a lot of homework, brushing up on protocols, just going through things in my head, listening to podcasts, just trying to get those juices flowing again to where I'm in the right mind. Because really, it's been 8 weeks of working out, and I'm back to doing yoga, which is a huge win. Prior to surgery, the hip was so arthritic that I couldn't get into any sort of position. And so I had to basically, cut out that. I'm back to doing that. Did 10 minutes this morning. Feel great. Going to get a workout in here in a little bit. 0 issues. So I think overall, where this would affect me downstream is now climbing in and out of our vehicle assets, sitting in a position where my hip is below my knees for a prolonged. I tell you what, just to wrap this up, the worst problem I had was sitting in a car. That 2 to 5 week, 6 week mark, man, it was almost miserable to have a car ride, and I did not leave town really. I made some poor decisions on driving. I made some poor decisions on my ability and capabilities to sit in a vehicle for a prolonged period of time, and I paid for it. Like it was awful. So if you get to this point in the podcast, like that was the biggest hiccup, was like I just could not sit in a car for any length of time. I would be in pain by the time we got out of the city limits. That is all fine and dandy. Like I'm driving, sitting in cars, going on road trips, like everything's fine. So this, I still have some swelling. I have a feel like what is a knot under the incision site. I'm able to, cup and Theragun it pretty good. But I think the big thing, and so now I can actually pick things up off the floor in a good ergonomic position. I don't have the strength there. Like I'll favor that left leg a little bit. Can't quite get my back into a good, flat back position just quite yet, but I can reach my toes, and that's a plus. So, as we get back into, doing the duties of my job, luckily, at least where I'm at right now in my career, I don't have a lot of figuring out how to extricate people from their house. I anticipate in the next few months, as I probably, transition back to ground EMS, if an opportunity presents itself. Obviously then you're back into the bending, twisting, pulling, pushing. And I have no doubt that by then I should be, back to near 100%. So there it is. It's my recovery from hip replacement surgery. I'll go back to jokes of being the old man and having hip replacement and doing all this, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I should expect that banter from my coworkers, and I will, and I will fully embrace it. That stuff doesn't make me mad. I get where I'm at in my career, and I appreciate that I've gotten this far. So whatever jokes are coming my way about having an artificial hip already is perfectly warranted and acceptable. So come up with your best. It is what it is. So outside of that, that's my journey through hip replacement as a almost 50-year-old person in first responder, and it's for the most part been a pretty good experience on the back end. Some trouble in the middle, but that's to be expected. So if you're on the fence about getting a hip replacement, I would just do it. Hopefully it doesn't come for you, but if it does, that was my journey through it. Everybody's is going to be different, so I wouldn't expect yours to be the same, and I shouldn't have expected mine to be necessarily different, if that makes any sense to anybody. All right, I go check on my kids. It's 9:15 on Sunday. Somebody's got to be awake by now and is probably craving some pancakes. So it's a pretty slow moving Sunday, but we'll get back at it with cool topics and hopefully some guests. I got some things in the works. We just need to make them pan out. So let's get after it. That's it for today. See you, everybody. Thanks for listening. Work hard. Be kind. Bye.